Hey everyone, Jennifer Lee Chan here from NBC Sports Bay Area. It is Thursday, still in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine, and we spoke to tight ends today and defensive backs. So, kind of a fun day. Kind of a little fallout though from John Lynch's press conference yesterday and his scrum with the 49ers local beat reporters. Um, a lot of people are focusing on this um, no guarantees quote that John Lynch said. No guarantees, and the fact that they're older, they've been spending a lot of money. While I do understand what everybody is talking about, I don't think there's a need to freak out. I don't think we're going into a doom and gloom era of the 49ers. Yes, there are no guarantees in what's going on, but that's the natural part of this part of the year. There are no guarantees that Deebo Samuel is going to be on the team. There are no guarantees that Kyle Juszczyk will be on the team, or Brock Purdy will get an extension, or George Kittle will get an extension, or JP Mason will remain on the team. There's so many questions. It's super early in the year. I think we'll get more answers from him when it comes to the end of March, and that's the owners' meetings or league meetings that happen in Florida. So right now, I understand why he's kind of being careful with his words. And he was careful with his words in regards to everything from Christian McCaffrey's health to the status of Brock Purdy's extension. It is in the infancy stages. They are just starting to talk. I'm sure, as in any negotiation process, there are times where two parties are going to be completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't go into a negotiation for a contract extension as Brock Purdy's agent and say, oh, sure, we'll take $40 million a year. No, you shoot for the top, and that's $60 million, which is what Dak Prescott got. And you're not going, the 49ers aren't going to offer $60 million. So they're probably going to start at $40 million a year, maybe even lower than that. At some point, these two parties are going to meet in the center and they're going to find a number that works, whether it's at OTAs, whether it's, prior to training camp, we don't know. I think if they're close, I do think Brock Purdy shows up for OTAs. I think he shows up for, things like rookie minicamp to throw the ball around. He's been around the facility already. I don't think he's a guy that's going to hold out. Um, he may be a guy that comes in, he practices maybe 7-on-7s, doesn't do 11-on-11 work. I don't think because looking at guys that don't have guaranteed money going forward. I mean, he does have money coming in on in his fourth year, but what he's done and what he deserves, obviously you don't pay a guy for what he's done. You're going to pay him for what he's going to do, but they're not going to undercut him and only pay him $35 million a year. They're just not going to do that. Brock Purdy has taken them to the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. And yes, it was a tough season in 24, but there was not one game. People forget there was not one game, not one, where Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle were all on the field at the same time. Not one game the entire season. That makes a difference. And I know people are saying, well, okay, Brock Purdy needs to be that guy that can carry a team that has, mid-range players on it. There is not one quarterback in this league that would not have their production go down without those people on the field. So Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, those four players. If you take your top four skill players, and not to mention Trent Williams, so top five players on your offense off the field, yes, Patrick Mahomes is a guy that will do a good job, but his production is going to go down. There's no way he has the same production without those players as he does with them. So, yes, Brock Purdy maybe won't get 60 million. I do think he gets up to somewhere in the high 50s just because of the trend. And I know it's not that you should get paid because of the trend, but that's where his agent's going to start the negotiation process. So I think it's going to be in the high 50s because of the percentage of the cap. And when John Lynch says, hey, we're going to rein it back in somewhat, I understand. They want to protect their future. They want to make sure they have enough money to go forward with for guys that take the place of guys that have been around for a long time. George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. They want to be able to pay those players that are going to take those stars' place. So while I do think they're going to be careful with their spending, I think they are going to really take a look at, yes, they're not going to be able to give all those players huge contracts when you've got to pay Brock Purdy top dollar. So, you look at the salaries in the 49ers roster. Trent Williams, top paid left tackle. Christian McCaffrey, top paid running back. Kyle Juszczyk, top paid fullback. George Kittle, in the top of the tight end class of being paid. Uh, Nick Bosa, top paid defensive end. Fred Warner, top paid linebacker, one of the top. So you've got all of those players that need to get paid and their contracts are already done. Then you also consider you've got, Dre Greenlaw. Do they bring him back? Can they bring him back? Juwan Jennings is in the last year of his contract. And you've got Brock Purdy. It's like all of these players, Diamador Lenore, now one of the top paid cornerbacks. So when you have all that money going out, and they're committed to that money is going out. Yes, and even if Deebo Samuel does get traded, they're on the hook for a $31 million cap hit for him to be on another team. So considering all that, yes, they have to be careful with their spending. So while I think this no guarantees statement that John made in part of his press conference, I don't think it's like, okay, we're changing our entire philosophy and we're not going to spend money on players anymore. I don't think that happens. You cannot have a good team. And I think CEO and owner Jed York wants a ring so badly. They are going to do what it takes to get one. So while there is all of this freaking out on multiple platforms on social media after John Lynch spoke yesterday, I just didn't take away the same, like, the house is on fire type of mentality as I saw from other people. Yes, they're going to be careful, but I just don't think it's an entire change of philosophy where they don't spend any money at all. Or they stop spending money, or, because they're still spending money on those star players, but they stop giving out big contracts. I don't think that's the case. They're going to have to give out big contracts to players that deserve it. Otherwise, they are not going to win games. Now, I heard someone say, oh, they're not going to do that anymore because the window's closing. They got to add youth to their roster, which they do. And last year was a great start. 2024 was a fantastic start with the entire rookie class contributing. You have Malik Mustafa, Bernardo Green, Dominic Pooney, Jacob Cowing, all of these players contributed, Isaac Guerrero. So they're starting to get an influx of young players. Yes, they are going to let some guys go. And that's, like Aaron Banks, who is going to garner a large contract with another team, like Laken Tomlinson did a few years ago. That's why they can kind of not spend as much money on the offensive line. You can't pay everybody. So you've got to kind of do the pros and cons of each player and figure out where you're going to spend a lot of money. And they've made a lot of choices. They've made some pretty good choices in keeping guys like Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and all those players that we've mentioned before, Brandon Ayuk, $30 million a year. They have to spend that money. So it's not like they're going to tighten the purse strings and not spend any money. It's not going to be that extreme. They just have to secure their future. The window is not closed. I think you've got a good core of players that are already under contract that are making a lot of money. And, the 49ers have planned. Currently for 2025, they are $51 million under the cap. So they have $51 million in cap space. Yes, they spend a lot of money. So, top 51 players. Total cap right now, $278 million. So a lot of times they bump a lot of that money forward. They pay for it eventually. So they have to plan ahead for when they hit those markers. So outside of that, yes, in Indianapolis, they are scouting defensive tackles to take place of guys like Javon Hargrave. They're looking at tight ends to potentially soon, eventually, not now, be successors for George Kittle. They're looking for guys that are going to be successors for Christian McCaffrey. It is the natural evolution of a team and of a roster and of a game, and it's not a reason to freak out. They're still going to spend money, and that is just my take. It was fun talking to a lot of the young tight ends that are coming out. A lot of them talk about George Kittle and how they are huge fans of his and how they're great run blockers. Those two top tight ends could be guys that the 49ers target with that number 11 pick. I'm not sure Tyler Warren is there at 11. Colston Loveland might be a stretch at 11. So I just don't know if there's a lot of movement around picks in the first round. I don't think that there's a team that's going to want to bump up a couple spots to get to 11 and they can move down to take Colston Loveland. I also don't think there's room for them to move up, but maybe they do have a compensatory pick. They've got about 10 picks, but they need to use them wisely because they've got to make sure they have players on the roster who are making less money than all the stars. All right, so that's my hot take of the day against the no guarantees words clause statement that John Lynch made on Wednesday. It's not doom and gloom. It's not time to burn it all down. The window's not shut. I don't think there really is a window. I think, you see the 49ers and they've been perpetually in the playoffs, except for last year when they were hit with all of those injuries. So that's my take. And I'll bring you more updates. I'll post more videos up here. I did post the entire John Lynch podium session that's up there. So definitely check that out. And I'll bring you more from the combine coming up soon. Talk to you guys later. Bye.